Alright boys and girls, if you're familiar with the very prestigious Carnage YouTube channel, then you'll know that I pretty much only talk about fighting games, mainly ones developed by Capcom. This is because I've been playing the games put out by this company ever since I was around 4 years old, and definitely not because they give me a shit ton of views. Today's video, however, is not going to cover a fighting game. Instead, we'll be talking about an arcade shooting game, albeit one released by Capcom that features their characters. Released in 2000 on the Dreamcast and in arcades in Japan and North America, and in 2002 in Europe, and developed by the now defunct Japanese game studio Saikyo, Cannon Spike is one of the most gleefully bizarre games I've played in a while. Just as a quick detour, remember how in the early 2000s Sega was like, hey, Sonic is really cool and people around the world love him, but he's not edgy enough, so we're gonna give his cousin Shadow guns to make him really cool and hip. Cannon Spike follows that same formula, because while characters like Charlie and Cammy aren't known for using realistic firearms in their games, you can bet that they'll be strapped up in Cannon Spike. Admittedly, I actually forgot about this game's existence for a while. It's been many years since I last played it, and I only remembered it when I was up at 3 AM one night desperately trying to think of new video ideas. I think that returning to the game after having forgotten everything about it provides me with the opportunity to experience the game fresh and properly discuss my thoughts. Alright, now that we've finished the intro, let's dive into Cannon Spike and explore the game in detail. Cannon Spike provides 7 playable characters for you gamers out there like myself, and they include Arthur from Ghosts and Goblins, Cammy and Charlie from Street Fighter, Mega Man from... well, Mega Man, Shiba Santaro, who is based on the character Siva from the Capcom game 3 Warriors, Simone, who is based on Lin Kurosawa from Capcom's Alien vs Predator arcade game, and BB Hood from Darkstalkers. Street Fighter character Vega, or Balrog if you're in Japan, also appears in the game under the name of Fallen Balrog, although he is an unplayable enemy. Speaking of Street Fighter, Cannon Spike itself is named after Cammy's Cannon Spike special move, and this has been part of the series ever since she first appeared in Super Street Fighter 2 The New Challenges. When it comes to the gameplay, Cannon Spike, like all good arcade games, is simple to understand and play. You move your character around with the joystick and have 3 buttons: Mark, which lets you lock onto enemies, Shoot, which lets you shoot obviously, and Attack, which is a close range attack. This does more damage than shooting from a distance, but you risk being attacked by the enemy since you have to move close to them for the melee attack to connect. If you press both the shoot and attack buttons at the same time, you can do a special ranged attack, and if you press all 3 buttons at once, you can perform your super special move, although this does require you to have at least 1 special token. Occasionally, enemies will drop these special tokens when you defeat them, and if your partner dies in 2-player mode, they will drop one for you to pick up. Cannon Spike is also a fast-paced game, and the characters themselves move on rollerblades to ensure that they don't lose speed. Bullets fly insanely fast, and you often have little time to move in and out of incoming fire. Moving out of the way even a split second too late can be the difference between life and death in Cannon Spike, so quick reactions are essential. Developer Saikyo has an extensive history of making shoot-'em-up games that are like Cannon Spike, and when playing the game with a friend, I could tell right away that this game was developed by a team of people who knew exactly how to make a fast-paced bullet hell game. Cannon Spike is also quite challenging. Look, maybe this is because I suck butt at bullet hell games, but the damage that enemies do is high and unrelentless on the higher difficulties, and while you do have the opportunity to pick up items that regenerate your health, these only help to a certain extent. I will say though, that despite the Capcom branding and intensity of the gameplay, Cannon Spike doesn't do anything particularly innovative with its gameplay. Look, don't get me wrong, this game is great fun, especially with a friend, but there's no major gameplay hook that makes you have to consider when approaching enemies, like how Ikaruga has the color switching mechanic for example. Another flaw, albeit a more definitive one, is that the game's lock-on feature only lasts for around 4 seconds. Sometimes you just want to stay locked on to a big boss as it attempts to vaporize you from the face of the earth, but the game doesn't let you for some reason. As a kid, I grew up in the arcade playing games like Metal Slug, where you have to shoot everything in a 50-mile radius as fast as possible without getting hit once, and Cannon Spike reminds me of those days when games were simpler and more about fun. There is no grand, thought-provoking narrative here, because while Cannon Spike does have a storyline, it doesn't really matter, no one cares. The game's focus is always on the gameplay. When Cannon Spike was released to the world, it ended up with a 73 on Metacritic, so honestly not bad for an arcade-focused bullet hell shooter. Its review scores were mostly between 6 to 8 out of 10 from many outlets. In a short review from Next Gen magazine in their November 2000 issue, they wrote that, Cannon Spike is not quite artillerific, but it is a mindlessly fun way to murder some time. I know this isn't the most relevant or topical point, but I feel compelled to admit that my new favorite word is artillerific. Move over, hullabaloo. For one reason or another, Cannon Spike had a very early review embargo. You know how games nowadays have reviews that come out like a week before the actual game comes out? Or maybe the reviews don't even come out before launch at all because the publisher knows that the game sucks? Cannon Spike's first review, at least to my knowledge, first appeared in Electronic Gaming Monthly in their October issue, a full month before the game itself released. The review stated that while the game was a lot of fun, it was just too short and simplistic to be worth full price. Not much is known about the development or budget of Cannon Spike, so I can't make any definitive claims regarding those factors, but as Capcom never ported the game to any other system, it's safe to say that perhaps the game didn't sell as well as they had hoped. On the bright side, harsh critic Edge magazine gave the game a respectable 7 out of 10, which, fun fact, is 1 point higher than what they gave Super Smash Bros. Melee. At the end of the day, Cannon Spike, while not particularly innovative, is... it sure as hell artillerific. The best way to play the game is with a friend, and after pulling the game out at my fighting game locals and forcing people to play, we had a blast shooting our way through the seemingly infinite number of enemies the game threw at us. Over the years, physical copies of Cannon Spike have skyrocketed in price, and if the next generation reviewer didn't think the game was worth $30, I wonder how he feels about having to pay over $200 for a used copy. If you're going to try this game out and can't afford to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars, then try emulating it on PC. You can play the game at a solid frame rate in 1080p, or perhaps even 4K if you're so inclined, and if you have 2 controllers and a friend, then it's a total blast. Overall, I'd recommend this game heavily, only if you like mindless arcade-style games that don't provide much in the way of innovation. I know that may sound like I've just dunked on the game and calling it horrible, but believe me, Cannon Spike is very much a product of its time, and it's a far cry from the modern games that we're used to playing today. It's really, really awesome, and I recommend you give it a shot.